We are Assassins Rugby with Rick and
Ladies and gentlemen, assassins, guests, as the service of the soup course begins, I just want to take a brief moment. I don't know what your devotional inclinations are, and I don't know if the notion of saying grace is passé or not. But I just think that given what has been accomplished by this club so far this weekend and the kind of evening that we're having this evening, as the soup's being served, I would encourage you to just take a moment of thoughtful contemplation. Think about what this club has meant to you. Think about the great friends, the great memories, the great fellowship, and the great competition, and just in your own little way, give thanks for all that this weekend is. Please enjoy your dinner. Hello again, assassins. How's the soup course, all right? I probably should have mentioned this earlier in case you didn't know. My name is Brad Oswald. I'm a reformed prop. I was, I think, among the former front row players of the Assassins based on damage caused by blows to the head. They gave me the best chance of getting through this. So here I am. Also, if you were at the meet and greet last night, you would recognize me as half of the musical comedy duo Forbes and Oswald, who entertained you on the patio last night. Hey, here's the thing. This is a little memory test. What would happen, people who were at the thing last night, what would happen if I said, and now we've played 50. You see? Yeah, warming the cockles of my heart. We're going to try that again later, and we'll get everybody to do it. Anyway, one quick housekeeping detail before we get started on the formal program. If you did not have a chance to get your picture taken on the red carpet, Assassin's blue background on the way in, they're going to have that going for another half hour or so after dinner. So it's your almost famous moment. Please take advantage of it. It's a little keepsake, so that's something to do. As you know from when you came in the door this evening, you were handed a book, which is a look back at 50 years of Assassins Rugby. It's a comprehensive history of the club. It's kind of a labor of love for the organizing committee. Please take some time to read and enjoy that. It's a great keepsake. You can take it back. It's all about our club's entire history. So with that said, we're going to have a few speakers come up and talk about the Assassins Rugby Football Club this evening. We're not going to ask that, hey, can I get a minute here? Thank you very much. We're not going to ask them to come up and give a history of their era because that's in the book in front of you. So we've just asked them, given them a simple assignment, tell what you think is an interesting story about your time as an assassin, and then share from the heart what this club means to you. And as they tell their stories and as they give their thoughts on being an assassin, just give it a little thought yourself, because this is a very special evening. Please give them your attention, because these people have they've volunteered to represent their era of the club, and they've given this some serious thought, and this is these are the meaningful moments of this evening. So without further ado, I'm going to ask to come to the podium, please, to talk a little bit about being an assassin, Mr. Jamie McDonald.
Bright lights. Truly gratifying to see the crowd, to see the turnout for this special event. I'm glad to be an assassin. And how did I get to be an assassin? was one of the all-time greats and who I hold as a gold standard for rugby players, a pure athlete, Clint Evans. Met me at a bison camp and said, you know, we've got this rugby club we're forming. We meet down on Churchill Drive and work out there in the spring. Why don't you come along? And so I did. Best thing I ever did, luckiest break I ever had. It changed my life. That's how I became an assassin. In all the sports teams I've ever been in before then, I always felt like a visitor. I always felt that my teammates were acquaintances and that time moved on and so did everyone else. That wasn't the case with the assassins. When I turned up on Rod Catchlick's lawn and met all the troops, I felt an instant belonging. It wasn't the same. It didn't matter if you were fast, strong, skilled, whatever you were accepted. There were no exclusions. You were part of a group. And I fell in love with rugby because till that point it was football and everything, an ounce of hate's worth a pound of muscle and all that, and the conflict, and you didn't get along. In rugby it was different. You'd get out and hammer each other, and then you'd all go out for a beer after and talk about it and trade the latest jokes and stories. It was a wonderful feeling. It was inclusive. It was total acceptance. It was the first time in my life in sports I really felt like I belonged. I was not a visitor. I'd found a home. My teammates were not acquaintances. They were a bunch of brothers from different mothers. We were family and joined in a community of families by a mutual love of rugby. Families have traditions. Seeing as this is a polite crowd, I won't go into some of them. But I remember my first social, and the rugby socials for the Assassins were legendary. The first social I think I went to was at the Canoe Club on Osborne for Dennis Kane. There's a large picture window in the back looking over the river. It was a very dark night, and everyone was partying away when all of a sudden all the lights went out. You probably know what's happening here. When the lights came on, it was just one light over by the window. And there, from one extreme part of the picture window to the other extreme, was a perfect line of buttocks. It was a dark night, but I don't know how it was, because it was obviously a night of very many full moons. I can remember the socials distinctly as being great parties. And I also remember the tradition of singing when we went to tournaments. You always had to sing a song. And our team song was, "Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home." You might remember that if you're from my era. Of course, I won't have Mike Forbes come up here and do all the nasty little gestures that went with the song. There were characters. I remember Gentleman Jim Platt. Now, why do I say gentleman? Well, because I'll always remember he was waiting for the ball to come out, and some woman was heckling him mercilessly from the sideline. And he stopped for a second, and he finally turned to her and said, "Piss off, lady." And I thought, that's very gentlemanly. I mean, who nowadays would follow piss off with lady? Then there was our resident magician, Dwight Evans. You've always seen on TV where a magician will wave a wrist and pull a rabbit out of nothing. Dwight could wave his fist and produce a large mouse. This he did in a tournament in Minneapolis, Jesse James tournament, where someone who was between Dave Uniscus and he was collapsing the scrum, a dangerous thing to do. And Dwight's the person to tune someone in. And so he sent him a strong message. Only the person opposite him sort of saw it coming and got his head out of the way, and the message went right into Dave Uniscus's cheek. And, of course, produced a rather large mouse. Now, we all felt very sorry for this injury by friendly fire. When we went back to the hotel, Dave, with this large mouse and a blackened eye, got sympathy from everybody until he met these two ladies who were impervious, it seemed, to the advantages of rugby players, except one of them saw Dave with this big mouse and took instant sympathy and took him home for the evening. The rugby player's sympathy stopped immediately. Finally, a quick event to show the difference sometimes in persona between being in the rugby crowd and not. I took a lady called Nancy Rankin to one of these socials. It was a great do. And as I was entering the place with Nancy, I happened to mention that I knew John Sam. I don't know how John Sam's name came up. And she said, "Oh, John Sam, he's in my physiology class. He is such a reserved, quiet, considerate individual, never says anything, very, very pleasant chap." My eyebrows went up a little bit. I opened my mouth to say something, but I didn't have to, because with perfect timing, around the corner at that moment, came John Sam. He was sweating like an oinker. He had his tie tied around his head, hanging down the back. He had a beer in each hand. And as he went by, he was, "Woo!" Nancy's eyes opened like saucers and her mouth dropped. I didn't have to say a thing. I would like to honor and pay tribute to all from my decade who have made the trip here for this special occasion. They come from great distances. Dennis Kane from Texas, Carl Rubin from Ottawa, Tony from St. Albert in Alberta, Vic Christunius from Portland, Carl Rubin from Ottawa, I said that, and Greg Hull from Virginia. Thank you very much for attending this. Would someone like to hand me a glass of something? Water's fine. Wine's better. It's good to honor those from my decade who have made the trip here and are honoring us a celebration. But there are those of us from the early days who are not here because they can only be here in spirit. It would be remiss of me not to honor the rugby greats who have gone on before. So I ask you to charge your glasses and stand. To absent teammates. To absent teammates. Do I have to return this? Thanks. And as I look at this assembly this evening, it occurs to me that in 50 more years, someone here will be standing in my place. speaking at the centenary about what being an assassin for the last half century meant to him. And I hope, I pray, that that speaker will feel as much gratitude in his heart for the rich fulfillment, the life-sustaining memories, the time-transcendent friendships of his 50 years as much as I feel for mine. Thank you.
And now we've played 50. Okay, see, that was a test. Next time you got to be more on your toes. How's the salad course? Everybody doing well so far? Thank you so much to our friends and our hosts here at the Metropolitan Entertainment Center for what has been so far and what will continue to be a lovely meal. As you finish up your salad course, in the interest of keeping things moving along, we're going to ask the next of our speakers to come up. We're kind of going a little bit in chronological order, but everybody's going to have their own individual take on the Assassin's experience. Our next speaker has been a player, a coach, a mentor, a friend, and, you know, for better or worse, a referee. I would like to please welcome to the podium the lovely and talented Randy Dilk.
People, I'm not a public speaker. I would like to say, first of all, last night was my top 10 of rugby experiences. It was unbelievable. Also, I want to say, for all the people that organized this 50th, amazing, but especially Johnny Berman. Without Johnny, this is not going to happen. Not going to happen, okay? So now we'll talk about my experience as an assassin. I will go 1980. Had a coach. I'm naming no names. Coach, I thought, oh, he's going to kill us. But at the end, he was really good. And I remember also in 1988, my wife understood my obsession with rugby, married me August 20th, 1988 on field number 1. Wendy. I also remember, and guys, I'm a mouthy guy, but I'm very nervous right now, I've got to be honest. But I also remember in the 90s, I thought, in the 80s, we didn't win. I thought, why? We should win at some point, right? And I said, let's do it, let's win. Between 1995 and 2003, won a few championships with many coaches, amazing athletes. It was incredible. My experience with the Assassins was the people I would never meet unless we played rugby. A lot of people I would never meet and are friends to this day. And at the end of the day, for me, for being an assassin was, I enjoyed the hard practices, I enjoyed the winning, the losing, taught me everything. And at the end of the day, I played with some of the best athletes in Manitoba, not rugby, in Manitoba, the best athletes. And I feel honored about that. It was incredible. And my speech is short. End of the day, I love being an assassin. I do. I just love it. That's all I got, guys.
I had to give him a hug. What else could I do? Just continuing with the presentations of a similar vintage, but certainly, by anybody's standard, a different fucking guy. Chris Chapman, ladies and gentlemen.
So the first thing I need to say is, well, I've lost my voice, but that's another story. But I'm just glad this day is finally here because I'm really tired of the manic emails from Johnny Berman while I was away in Ireland. So Johnny, it's all good. We're moving forward. It's going to be a great night, and it already is a great night. So I've got kind of a few different takes on being an assassin. For me, one of the first events was In the 1970s, it was either 77 or 78, the Assassins ran a boys club at Rosedale United Church. Now, I was one of those kids that my parents kept a tight leash on me and wasn't allowed to go out very often. So I would sneak into Rosedale. I would listen to all the fun the kids were having in the gym, wanting to go into that gym and play. Now, eventually, I did get the courage and I did make it in a couple times. But that was my first introduction to the Assassins, and it was a pretty phenomenal one. And as a kid growing up in Fort Rouge, we wanted to do two things. We wanted to be a Churchill Bulldog, and we wanted to play with the Assassins Rugby Football Club. And that's where we are here. So I get as a kid introduced to the game of rugby. It's 1980 or 1981. Believe it or not, I'm a scrawny little grade 7 kid playing 15s tackle rugby for the grade 7, 8, 9 team at Churchill. And I was fortunate to have some great coaching at that time. And I actually brought our 80-81 trophy here tonight, and I asked my coaches to sign it so my kids could then see the impact that rugby has had on me in the last 35 years. And it's been such a phenomenal piece. But I was fortunate at that time, and Eddie still denies that he coached me back then, but my dad had photos of him being there with the team, and we had Randy Dilk and George Huden as well. So they're the ones that sold me on this game and allowed me to develop to where I am today, which is rather gross, but well, that's okay. I can remember we were at Churchill and we're playing grade 10, and their conversation at that time is, you know what, you need to come out to an assassin practice. So I'm a grade 10, 16 years old. I go out to my first assassin practice, and I end up having to prop against Eddie Groth, and Brad Oswald was on the other side as well. And I think Hooter was playing hooker. And I had never seen a scrum go that low in my life. I was never so scared in my life as that day for sure. But it was really interesting that day because after the practice, George, I think, Hooter was president at that point, and he called everyone over the sideline and said, you know what, we're putting this money into Maple Grove. We need another $5,000 just so we can beat the Wasps with their donation. So tell me, George, if that's true or not. I'm pretty sure it was. So starting to play a little more seriously in the late 80s, I had the opportunity to go to Chicago with a bunch of fellows in 87, and at that time there were some guys that were on the way out of playing. But I sat on a plane with guys like Pater and Hooter, Wolfgang and Jimmy. And I'm not even sure where it happened, but Wolfgang decided it was going to be a really good idea to shave an A in the back of my head. Now, Pops Russell had promised my dad that he would take me to Chicago and take care of me. Jimmy, after high school practices, and we ended up coaching high school together at Churchill after I was done playing, but he would come to my house on a regular basis and have meals with my mom and dad, and then we'd head off to senior practice afterwards. But I'm pretty sure after that, Jimmy was a little scared to show up at my mom and dad's house for sure. Going back to that experience being at Churchill, I can just remember walking into the weight room and looking up on the wall and seeing the glory teams from 67, 68, 69, all these Churchill alumni, all these Churchill Bulldogs up on the wall. And I can remember when sitting on the executive in the 80s and going through the mailing list and saying, oh, there he is, there he is, there he is, there he is. It was such a surreal experience. It was just something phenomenal. But as our players started to disappear, the first practice I ever went to, I'm guessing there were 60 players at it. Now you guys right now, the new Assassins, that's a regular occurrence for you. We went through a really dark time after those 60 players. We went into a dark period where we had 15, 20 guys playing 2 divisions. And it was a tough, and I need to give Randy Dilk a lot of credit because he brought our club out of that dark age, and we need to pass it on to him. Two guys I really looked up to were Bart and Dwight Evans. They were great mentors for me. I idolized them growing up until I think it was the Christmas caroling party in '86 where Dwight decided to break my thumb because he didn't like me. But I also remember Bart playing his career in the CFL and coming back and playing with the Assassins. And it must have been in the 80s at some point, because we had the young guns. We had Rooster, we had Cam, we had, I'm just trying to Goche, Billy Whitman, myself were playing along. And someone took a cheap shot on Cam. And next thing you know, Bart's over there, pulled him down, gave him the knee to the head, which in today's rugby, unfortunately, you can't get away with that. Unfortunately. But that dark time for the Assassins in the 90s really made us kind of assess who we wanted to be and where we wanted to go. And we focused on grassroots at that point. And we said that grassroots rugby was going to be essential for the survival of this club. So we started getting coaches into CJS. We started getting coaches into Glenlawn. We continued on with Churchill. It expanded to, Sisler and Windsor Park. And if I've missed anyone, I apologize, but that's why we're at the place we are right now with 290 people here tonight, because of what people have done for this game. That's great. Some of the things that happened for us during that time too was we looked at our first title in '95. It was a long drought. It was 19 years without a title, and through Randy's leadership, he took us there, and we got there. And from that point, we were one of the clubs that were to be reckoned with for the next 10 years. We were consistent, perennial, being in finals or being in title games. In 95 or 96, which is something I'm really, really proud about, is we started as the Assassins. We started the women's program. It started off as a Colts. Yeah. And it really, the Colts started off was we needed someone for Jimmy Ryan to date, but that's sorry, Jimmy. No, I'm not. But it got to the point where by 98 we were first division champions, second division champions, Colts champions, and we got to the point where our women were competing at a very high level. Something I'm proud about the women was their championship in 2006 when they beat the Wanderer women. They upset them. So those are these ladies here. I was saddened by their loss in 2011. They were winning the game and gave it away in the last couple minutes. But they came back the next year with a vengeance. I think we scored almost 1,200 points and had less than, I think it was 84 points scored against an undefeated season. I've never seen anything, and I don't think I'll be part of anything like that ever again. But the last thing I want to say here tonight is the fact that I've had an opportunity to come back and play again. And playing with a bunch of young kids, playing with some old guys that I've coached, it has been such an honor, it's been such a privilege, and it has been so much fun. I want to tell you guys I love it, and I'm glad that we're all Assassins.
I've been an assassin for many a year, and I've spent all my money on rugby and beer. And now that I'm older, I'll tell you, my friends, if I had all that money, I'd spend it again, because we've played 50. And we'll play 50 more. We are Assassins Rugby. We drink and we score. You guys were pretty good that time. Not as good as the last go-round last night, but that might have had to do with the fact that the Maple Grove had like unprecedented bar sales in the history of the fucking place last night. I'm just saying. Before we call up the next speaker, I just want to make a couple of quick recognitions and thank yous. First of all, if you've been watching the screen, you notice there's a scroll of the sponsors who have helped to make this reunion possible. Check out their names as they roll by. These people have got behind this project, and particularly gotten behind the production of the fantastic commemorative book that you were all given on your way in. That comes to you at no charge, and if you look at it, you can tell that's not a freebie. That is in full gratitude to the sponsors that helped to make that happen, and also to John Berman, the organizer of that thing, and to Steve Silcox, who, by the way, I don't know when that guy has slept in the last 4 months. Worked so hard on that book, so just when you have a look at the book, give those guys a little thank you. I also want to say thanks to the crew that made Friday nights get together at the park happen, particularly Jason and Brent, and to the committee, the larger amorphous John Berman related tentacular body that has worked for the past 2 years to make this reunion happen. Like, hats off, all of you. If you were at the park this morning, the breakfast crew led by Yvonne and Kathy and Linda handed out those Egg McMurrays or whatever they're called. That was really great, and I think John might mention this later, but like super big thanks to Dennis Malthouse and the Wasps for putting together a little runaround for the old boys. Hey, no coronaries. That was fantastic. So now let's get back to the business at hand as the dinner plates are being cleared off, and before we get to the dessert course, as mentioned before in Chapper's speech, a major part of this club's history started a little, like more than 25 years ago with the advent of the Assassins women's side. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I would like to, first of all, call on Cynthia Taylor to get us started. And by the way, everybody looks fabulous tonight.
All right. Good evening, Assassins. My name is Cynthia Remedios Taylor, also known as Cindy Buns, and it is my honor to be with you all this evening and to share some fond memories related to the women's side. As you may already know, Assassin Women came to be in 1996. This was a decision by the club to increase diversity and profitability. However, there was also another reason. In the words of Troy Williams last night, the men were looking for girlfriends. Wait for it, wait for it. Also stated by Troy was that this was impossible because the men were a bunch of assholes. As we can see by the low amount of player pairings within the club, this plan did not come to fruition. Needless to say, as a club, we have had some great parties, laughs, and of course some great rugby. I would like to take this opportunity to thank my buddy, my friend, Chris Chapman, for all of his hard work in creating the women's program. Love you, Chappers. You were instrumental in your organization and fostered a community of women that I call my closest friends to this day. Thank you also to those that came after to coach. We were not always the most disciplined, not always the most motivated, definitely the most chatty and outspoken, and we had some words about how coaching had to be done. I think that's continued with the women of 2006 and beyond. However, although that coaching was made hard or unbearable at times, we're thankful that you were there. And sometimes even coaching happened from across the field. Where's my friend Cam? I can see you over there. So my best example is of Cam trying to coach us after getting very frustrated while we were on field 1 and he was coaching, well, maybe yelling from the parking lot. My role tonight was to share with you one memory, but how do you summarize 10 years from 1996 to 2006? There were many firsts for the Assassin women. Our first win against the Rowdies, or any team for that matters, with the exception of the Wombat women. They really suck. Sorry, Wombat women, if you're out here. The first snafu and that fake leg, I'm just saying, if it's still out there, don't drink from it. Our first Rugby Fest, chaos at OTS Park. There's many a memory there. And of course, our first women's championship in 2006. Woo-hoo! The years with the club and as president for 2 years have greatly impacted my life, and I am sure that is the same for all of the women that have played and are still playing or making their Assassins debut this year. Tonight is also a night to speak to you about women in leadership. This club allowed me and other women to grow as leaders and to take on opportunities that have changed our lives. We have been challenged, supported, and have grown in our friendships of strong women. To the new Assassin women, cherish these times as you play among great women. Laugh, ruck, tackle, and most importantly, continue to build great friendships. This will take you far and will see you through many adventures. Thank you to all of the organizers tonight, and happy 50th Assassins.
This is the first time this evening when I walked back up to the microphone and felt like I was like way worse looking than the last speaker. No disrespect to the other people, but Chapper, really. Let's continue to talk about the Assassins women. I'd like to call on Robin Eaglesham to come and talk about what's happened more recently.
Good evening, Assassins. My name is Robin Eaglesham. If you didn't catch it, I'm one of the current women's players. So first of all, I'd like to thank everyone that's here. I'm sure you've heard a lot of this in the last 24 hours, but our club truly wouldn't be what it is today without all of you, and we certainly wouldn't be celebrating such a successful 50th anniversary without each and one of you and your support. I'm truly honored to be able to speak to a room full of my family. Some of you I've grown up with the last 10 years, and some of you I've never met, but will always hold a bond with by being part of the club. I joined the Assassins 10 years ago, and when asked to speak last week about one of my favorite memories, it seemed impossible to pick just one. You can ask any of my family, coworkers, or friends, and they're probably tired about hearing about Assassins this and Assassins that, and coming in on a Monday at work and telling some ridiculous stories that are only funny to me. But one has stuck with me though, not because it was a championship-winning season, but how we got there as a team. In 2008, the Assassins women were struggling for numbers and without a coach early on in the season. We played many games with just 15 players on the field, sometimes 13 and 14. We lost many games that season. Exactly how many I can't remember, probably because I've blocked out of my memory. But despite that, we kept showing up to practices, working hard, and even some of our players took turns running the practices. Considering the circumstances of the season, we didn't often get discouraged, but inevitably it happened. And there was always someone there motivating us, encouraging us, making silly jokes and keeping us going. We made it through the season and through to playoffs with some upsets and made it to the championship game despite the odds being heavily against us. We faced the Rowdies in the final, who had outscored us and outplayed us by a very large margin all season. The final was a hard-fought game, again, very similar to the rest of the season with very few subs, and I'll spare you all the heroic and hardworking details, but we did end up winning the championship in double overtime, and it is highlighted in your books. In my 10 years with the Assassins, I've been fortunate enough to be part of 2 championship-winning teams. But reflecting this week, this championship truly meant the most because of the road we took to get there and the group of teammates I got to share the field with. This season encompassed for me what being an Assassin is. Hardworking, supportive, strong, encouraging, and tough would be just some of the words that I'd use to describe my teammates. And I'm grateful that I got to experience this so early on in my career. This excited my love and passion for the club. As many of you in this room have done, I've met many of my best friends playing, and I wouldn't take back a single bump, bruise, or break that was handed to me on the rugby field in exchange for the memories I gained. Off the pitch is arguably sometimes even more fun. Whether it's our annual visit to the outskirts of Winnipeg to see the best Transcona has to offer for the St. Patrick's Day pub crawl, or gracing the various neighborhoods of Winnipeg with our angelic voices for the caroling party. The bonds and friendships developed are unmatched by any sport, and I'd argue by any other club. Thank you all for playing an important role in getting the club to where it is now. Whether you're a player, a coach, a supportive spouse, or a past president, each one of you has provided this club what it's needed to get where it is today, and provided me the opportunity to play the sport I love. Thanks.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Cynthia, for those lovely words. Now, I have a question, and this just occurred to me when Robin was speaking. Is there anybody here who, when they heard the words caroling party, didn't go, oh my God, that was fun? It doesn't matter how old you are, when you play with the team, the caroling party, you're kidding me. Hey, have some dessert.
Yes, and it's no, they never. No, they never.
All right, Assassins.
Will I play the wild?
We are in the home stretch.
Never no more.
Hey, how was dinner, everybody? How about a hand for our friends here at the Metropolitan Entertainment Center for a tremendous meal, great service. The wine was very nice, I thought. The white was a cheeky, sort of a blendy Cabernet. I'm just making stuff up now till you get quiet, just so you know. We're almost at the end of our formal program, and then you can get to your serious visiting and reminiscing. Just so you know, the sort of red carpet photo area is going to be open right after this program is done. So if you want to get your picture taken in front of the Assassins logo and look like a rugby star, that opportunity still exists. Also, once we're done here, if you direct your attention to the screen behind me, where the sponsors' names have been in a rotation, Steve Silcox has prepared a slide presentation that sort of takes us through the world of Assassins Rugby, and I think that that'll be a great sort of trip down memory lane if you remember things. We're going to talk a little bit about the more recent history of the Assassins Rugby Football Club before we get to the reminiscence. So I'd like to call on the club president, Shane Nobis, to bring some greetings on behalf of the Assassins.
Good evening, everyone. How was dinner? Yeah, I thought so too. I brought out this retro jacket because Jimmy Russell, Pops Russell, gave it to me about 3 or 4 years ago, and honestly, I cherish it because you know what? I know what it's like to be an assassin, and we all know what it's like to be an assassin. But before I get to that, I want to welcome everybody here. I was actually supposed to do this speech probably about an hour ago, so bear with me. Special thank you to Mr. John Berman. Without you, sir, this couldn't happen. So the countless emails, the countless texts, the countless meetings, the countless this, the countless that, I'm happy to say that Johnny, 100% successful so far, buddy. Couple of kudos out to Steve Silcox. Great job on the booklet today. Great job on, of course, getting the countless emails and countless texts from Johnny Berman. Brendan Cowell, thanks for rounding up all the tickets with all the young guys. great, good job, buddy. Way to get all the young guys out today. And of course, the rest of the 50th committee. Kudos to you guys. Without you, this could not have happened. So very good job. Round of applause for the 50th committee, please. So obviously, we all know this takes lots of planning, lots of meetings, and maybe some disagreements. Johnny Berman. We put this all together. Special thank you also to Jason Conrad and Brent Tomchuk for yesterday's meal. Thank you also Shirley Wishnowski, Brent Tomchuk, Wendy Felino, Kathy Russell for this morning. Great meal. Thank you to Rob Bernard for organizing the alumni game this morning, or this afternoon, I should say. It was a lot of fun, and I told my coach this earlier. You know what? It was nice to be on the pitch with all these older guys because I wasn't the oldest and I wasn't the slowest on the pitch. I'm very happy and proud to welcome everyone here today, as this is a momentous occasion. It's not very often that a rugby club celebrates its 50th year. And I'm very honored and proud to be a part of the festivities, even though it was a little late. We come from a rich and historic background that started out at Churchill High School, with names like Jimmy Platt, Clinton Dwight Evans, Jimmy Pops Russell, Brent Tomchuk, Brad Oswald, Don Pincock, Randy Dilk, the Flyshackers, Kevin Gauthier, Troy Williams, Keith Lindsay, Andrew Moffat, Chuck Kostick, Jarrett McLaughlin, Bobby McKay, and Cole Hunt. That's part of the, basically a lot of the guys that have set the foundation for this club on the men's side. Now we also have a women's club. And I do apologize that I did not say anything about the women's club yesterday, so this is all dedicated to the women. Special thanks to Heather Newton, Tanya Craik, Leonora Braun, Michelle Johnson, Cynthia Taylor Remedios, and Catherine Kiki Sheelander. These girls have set the bar really, really high for the future assassins and the present assassins. The bar is set, so thank you. Again, these are just a few names through the eras that paved the way to what we have become today. Presently, and I mentioned this yesterday, presently, we are the reigning three-time champions in Premier Division. Gunning for number 4. Presently, we are the current second division champions, going for a two-peat. I'm also very proud to say that our women's team is gunning for a championship once again this year. For the women, I'm very proud to say that these are the best numbers that the women's have seen in a very long time, so keep it up, women. Once we bring all three champions back to where they should be, in our arms and the Assassin's arms, Chris Chapman, you're the founder of the women's club. You may be proud. With so many different characters wearing the blue and white, the one thing I'm most proud about is that we are Assassins. Whether we played one game or whether we played 20 years. One final thing. To my current club members, when you put on that jersey, please remember where this team has come from and what you represent. We are all Assassin family. Thank you, and let's have a good night.
All right, we're bringing it home. Pardon me for a second if I lapse into the vernacular, but I fucking love you people. To talk a bit more about the Assassins' more recent history, I'd like to call on Cole Hunt to come up and say a few words, please.
Hello, everyone. As was mentioned, my name is Cole Hunt. I've been with the Assassins Rugby Club for a number of years now. I was hugely honored to be asked to speak tonight. It's incredible to be here and see this group of the last 50 years of this incredible club. I've been asked by my good friend and coach, Jarrett McLaughlin, to not be too organized with my speech because he's got to go next, and some of the other speeches were too prepared and polished. So I'm going to just kind of ramble on a little bit and vagaries and just kind of not say anything really. As Brad had said earlier, we got an easy ask. Tell a little story about rugby and what it means to you to be an assassin. Not bad. And I said, okay, that's easy. On my rookie night, I had to write a poem about why I want to be an assassin. So I'll just, come up here and recite the poem and be on my way. I don't have any recollection of the rest of that night, so I couldn't bring up my poem from then, and I'm pretty sure it was good. And as far as stories go, I started thinking about stories, and I thought about, okay, there's some good ones out there, and there's a few that I've listened to, and I can hear Rob Bernard's laugh over there because that's some of the stories that I've listened to over the years. But I thought to myself, I'm not going to come up here and tell a story. So if you want to hear about how I woke up naked on a garage roof, I'll be over the bar later. You can find me and ask, and that's going to stay off the record for now. It's gone. But it got me thinking about stories, and it got me thinking about how stories are so important to our rugby culture, and how stories are a really good way to connect through the generations of this club. And so as I was saying, there was many times where myself and Rob Bernard and Randy Dilk would be the last three sitting there at the Maple Grove Clubhouse, and I'd sit there as a 20-year-old kid, didn't know a thing in the world. I was dumber than Puke Shark at that time. And I would sit there and listen to all these stories and start to think, hey, maybe there's something to this rugby thing. Maybe there's something more than what I got into when I showed up to that practice, in whatever year it was, 2002. But yeah, the stories kind of become part of the legacy, connects the generations together. I think the best way that I've come up with to describe it is, and now that I've been around the club for a while, and I've been on the young side, and I've been on the middle side, and now I'm still on the middle side. I'm just like 27-ish. But you kind of get to see the whole range of the rugby experience, and you listen to the same stories told over the years and see how they change and grow and evolve. And it's just, it reminds us how special this is and how privileged we are to be part of something like this. And I know that for me, when I sit there at the park, at the end of the night, I just love it. And I just, I take every opportunity I can to soak it in. So I hope that for all of the younger assassins here tonight, I hope that you take a look around a few times tonight and just kind of take the opportunity to really enjoy this. And think about, the fact that this has been going on for 50 years. It's unbelievable. So it's been really neat. It's been neat for me to watch, kids that I coached become coaches, become leaders on the club. It's really, really special to see. And then to sit and talk to Dwight Evans about, how the club's doing now and listen to some of his stories. It brings back the history that we have. So I was talking to Randy Dilk earlier today, and we're kind of talking about how great the weekend's been already and how things are going so great. And Randy goes, yeah, this is awesome, but you guys got those 3 championships in a row. That's that's the best part, right? And I said, no, Randy, that's not the best part. I said those 3 championships are unbelievable. I highlighted my career. I love it, but that's not what it's about. And I looked at him. I looked around at Maple Grove. I said, Randy, this is what it's about. This is what it's about. This is way more important than any win on the field. It's bigger. So, I guess, yeah, what it means to me to be an assassin, rugby's been unbelievable to me. I can't even imagine what my life would be without rugby. I value the connections with the other clubs and people all over Canada and the States, and you meet all these people through this amazing sport that we share. But ultimately, it comes down to the words of wisdom, and I didn't want to mention Randy Dilk this many times in my speech, but it just keeps coming back. The words of Randy Dilk, what he's always told me, he said, Cole, there's 2 kinds of people in the world. There's assassins, and there's people who wish they were assassins.
Cole is absolutely correct. I think, too, about being in a rugby environment and hearing those same stories over and over again and how those stories evolve over time. Of course, I'm speaking about one night with Brent Tomchuk, but what, too soon? What? Our final speaker of the evening, in the formal part of the presentation, is going to talk a little bit more about the recent Assassin's history. Before I call Jared up, I just want to say 2 more thank yous, and I think these are significant. First of all, I want to thank all of the Assassins past who have traveled great distances to be with us this weekend. I'm sure what has happened has been worth the trip. We welcome you, we appreciate you, and we hope you'll come back for the 75th. I mean, I might not, be, but anyway. Thank you very much for making the journey. And most particularly, for anybody who's ever played this game, I want to say thank you to the spouses, to the people in our lives who bought into this fucking ridiculous notion and said, yeah, I will be with you while you do that. Because that is not always easy for them, but I guess they love us. So thank you, rugby spouses, for putting up with us and becoming part of the Assassins family. And in particular, with direct relation to this event and the planning that has gone on, and the execution of this, which has been excellent beyond anyone's imagination. And I'm speaking off script here, but I want to give a little tip of the hat to Yvonne Berman for all of the hard work that she has done, not just supporting John, but all of the hours that she's put in to help make this thing happen. And I know that John's house on Jade Place is not that tall, but I'm pretty sure she talked him off the ledge constantly. So hats off to you, Yvonne. And also a thank you to members of other clubs who have graced us with their presence tonight. If you've been in this game for any length of time, you know that what makes rugby special is the community of rugby and the friends that you make, not just on your own club, but when the game's over, it doesn't matter if you have been the puncher or the punchee, you're going for a beer with someone who is your lifelong friend. So you all know who you are out there. Thank you for being with us this evening and sharing this. We appreciate you. We will continue to appreciate you. So without further ado, I will call to the microphone our final formal speaker of the evening, the lovely and talented Jared McLaughlin.
Thank you. Lovely and talented. I don't know if any of my players would ever call me that, but I appreciate that. I love you too. My name is Jared McLaughlin. I've been with this club since about 1994. I started playing rugby in '93 with Cam and Jim Russell in grade 9. Those were my coaches back then. But before I get into that, I just want to say welcome again to the out-of-town guests. It's really special that you guys made this trip to get here. And for the local guests the local alumni that are here today too. We don't see you guys enough. We really don't. And to see you guys all out tonight is very special. And we'd like to see you guys more because you guys are the reason we're all here today. So the alumni, and to our current players. Okay, I think we have 85 players here, so that's a pretty good turnout. So the current players, thank you for all showing up to this. It's a big deal. Now, it has been said numerous times, his name's been brought up, but John Berman, huge thank you for stepping up to do this, John. Stepping up for this event, coordinating this event, tireless hours, lots of meetings. Yes, everyone stand up. It was very special when John came back a couple of years ago to start organizing this. I hadn't met him before, but it was this guy, he's very enthusiastic, he wants to do the 50th, he did the 25th, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. And and 388 meetings and texts, and it's been touched on. But nonetheless, John, thank you so much, man, this has been great. To Steve Silcox and Brad Oswald, okay, getting those books together. This piece of memorabilia is absolutely special. The work they did on this, getting the stories together, getting the pictures together, that book is fabulous. So Steve, Brad Oswald, great job on that. So a little bit about my past. I basically joined the club in grade 9 because my coaches were Assassins and that was the only place we were going to play. And that was fine because I didn't know any different, and what I learned from them, I actually liked it a lot. So I had Jim Russell, Cami Wanishu, and Kevin Goche coaching us in high school, and Billy Whitman a little bit as well. And those guys took us in grade 9, taught us the sport as best we could with limited numbers as a grade 9 team, but introduced us to this great game that, again, we are all here sharing today. For me, a memorable moment of that year in grade 9, and I know this is a senior men's thing, but it was Jim Russell. It was after his wheelchair-bound sister speech that he's given to everybody about 38 times a day. But nonetheless, it was after the wheelchair-bound sister speech. He pulled out a stake, and he threw the stake on the ground. He started stomping it and saying, "You're gonna kick the shit out of these guys." And And there's poor Cam, who's living on food stamps at the time, going, I was going to take that for my dinner, Jim. So that was a fond memory from the early times with those guys. You know, and it was pretty cool to see just, you know, how Jimmy could relate to us at that level and just that sort of thing. So nonetheless, it was a good intro to it, and it kept us on board. Another memory I have from my early days as a young guy on the Assassins was our rookie night. Again, most of these stories you don't tell, but I'll tell this one anyways. So whoever knows how the rookie night goes, and if you don't, what happens? You get auctioned off, and people buy you, and they treat you really well for the whole night. Take care of you, and you have a great time. So it's just a quote that I have, and it sticks in my head, because to me it was very funny, and you may find the humor, and it was actually said by Chris Chapman, the guy who built the women's program and does the youth rugby and all this sort of thing. The quote says, "Trucker, get your clothes off and go swim in that puddle right now." To join his two other teammates that were already in there. Nonetheless, that is one of my fond memories of the early times at the club, and again, it was a fun night. And I got to witness this because I was standing in a garbage can dancing, something that Steve Urkel made me do. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and that night ended up in a brawl at Wise Guys or something. But there's some serious ramification after that, so we'll just leave that there. Just to the teams who played in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, I didn't get to witness any of that era because I was a little too young at the time, and I didn't really know anything about rugby there either. But to you guys, I just want to say thank you for establishing this program and keeping it around and getting it into the schools. If it wasn't in Churchill, I wouldn't be here. And I know it was the Churchill guys who started this. But to the guys in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, thank you for establishing this. So we go into the 90s teams, and this is where my introduction to the Assassins was. I was a Colts player in 1994, and Colts for the next couple of years, then second division, and got to go to practice and practice with guys like Jimmy Ryan and Robbie Fly and Kevin Gauthier, Randy Dilk, Moffat, all sorts of great names, Paul Norman, Troy Williams, Rob Bernard, Shooter, all these guys, just great names in the history of this program. And what that team did was set a standard of winning for this club. They raised the bar and had expectations of winning. And that's what I learned when I got here. As a young player, I'm seeing how competitive these guys are and how much winning was important. And winning it's fun. Is it important? Yes, it is important at the time. But at the end of the day, it's this kind of thing, like Cole alluded to, that's more special than the winning. But nonetheless, those guys set an absolute standard of performance for this team, this club. Winning, I think it was the double the triple with the Colts in '96, 3 more championships up to 2001 or 2, 98. Sorry. Nonetheless, those were great times for the club, and to that group of guys, I just want to say thank you. To learn from you guys and to see a standard of excellence, you guys paved the way for something we try to emulate today. So, guys, thank you. Now, my era, my actual era, because I'm still playing, but my actual era was like in the early 2000s. You know, a lot of these, I can't call them old girls, get offended by that, but old boys is okay. But I was around when they started, and you know, with my teammates like Chuck and Nathan, you know, that's kind of when we were starting to take over the club. And we won a championship in 2003, and that was a great memory with some very good friends. And to me, that it taught us how to win. we got a lot of lessons the next bunch of years after that, because we sure lost a lot. But that year taught me how to win, and something that I could bring to this group of young guys and girls that I coach now. So for that group of players in the 2000s, it was a great time. It was some tough times after that when the Highlanders left and we lost a bunch of players, but nonetheless, we weathered the storm, and it's made it what it is now. So to my group of guys, Chuck, Piquelo, all you guys, Darcy Littlewood that are here, thank you guys too. That's awesome. So I'm going to jump around just a little bit here. I'm just going to talk about the future of the club right now. The future of this club is very special in being that right now we're in about 10 to 15 high schools coaching. Okay, we're creating kind of a monopoly of player production, but that's what you have to do in order to be successful. And to all the people who go and coach those high schools, people think I'm doing a great job. I'm a result as to what they're doing. It's their work that's getting these kids out and getting all these players out. I just get the benefit of it. So to those guys in the high schools and the ladies, thank you so much. And the other part about the future that is really important is the work Chris Chapman is doing with youth rugby. That is going to be absolutely essential to this program, and the numbers we're going to have coming up in the next 5 years, it's going to be astronomical. And not to sound overly ambitious, but in the next few years I can see 2 first division teams on this club and 2 second division teams on this club, and hopefully a couple women's teams on this club. And it's not far-fetched. It really isn't. So Chris, thank you for everything you do with that. So at present, Shane Novis alluded to this a little bit. Right now, we have 3 championships in a row with the men's premier. We're going for 4. We're going to go back-to-back in the second division as well. And our women are going to win it this year. And you want to put numbers on it, we'll call it a 4-2-1. Okay, 4 championships, 2 championships, and 1 for the women. I don't think that has ever been done, any part of it, going 4 in a row, having back-to-back, and having a women's championship. And I think it's something that's very feasible for this club. And I hope we can make you guys all proud and do that this year. So that's pretty exciting for what we have going on. Now, the biggest part of these championships and everything is the players. It's people sacrificing, making it to practice, showing up, and making Assassins a part of their life, just like you guys all have and been there, and you guys understand what they're doing. Right now, currently, we have about 105 registered players. That has got to be the highest number ever in this province. So that's a pretty good accomplishment. So to all you players out there, thank you. Now I'm just going to touch on something that, if anyone has noticed on the back of our t-shirts, we now have a mantra. It says, toughness, character, and tradition. And when John and I were meeting, I think it was the 23rd meeting, I brought up that we should have something for our club, a slogan, a mantra, something. And we talked a bit about it. He said, come up with something. And I did my best to encompass what this club has been. And with names like Barton Dwight Evans, Dane Jones, Kevin Gauthier, Troy Williams, Steve Silcox, Cole Hunt, and so on, you have to say toughness. You just have to. Absolutely. Character. It's about going through those tough times like the women have alluded to. Both women's set us alluded to. We've all been through the tough times, the thin times as a club, weathered the storm, and then come out on the other side of it successful. So the character part was an absolute as well. And the tradition, well, it's right here. So toughness, character, and tradition is our mantra. And I hope you guys are all proud of that, because you guys are the ones that have built that. So again, thank you all so much for being here and supporting this club. I feel as the coach of this club, I am so very fortunate to coach such a great group. I personally have been coached by many, many great men: Jim Russell, Randy Dilk, Brent Tomchuk, Cami Winishu, Kevin Gauthier, Johnny Fly, Dan Parks, Austin Onwright, Jean, I don't remember his last name, Glenn Hawker, and all great guys. And to these guys, I'm very thankful, because every one of you, I have taken something from and now deliver it to the teams that I coach. So guys, thank you so much for the time you've put in, and from me personally, so thank you guys. I'd like to stand up here and give you a few more trucker stories, or, talk about, the lack of intelligence of some of our young guys, but you guys can probably just see that sometimes, so it's all good. We'll leave it there. But yeah, there's so much to be said, and I'll leave you with this. Tonight has been 50 years and thousands of players in the making. It's taken a long time and a lot of bodies to get here. But tonight, it's not about the numbers. It's truly about the friendships we have. So guys, thank you so much for being here. Continue to support the Assassins, and I appreciate everything.
Well done, sir. Thank you, Jared. Before we close, if you were at the meet and greet last night and you saw the goofy little songs that Forbes and I sang, you may recall at the beginning of the first verse of one of the songs, I said, way back in the 60s, Jim Platt had a dream. He said, I'm going to start up a new rugby team. Dreams come true, don't they? Raise your glass, ladies and gentlemen, to Jim Platt, to the Assassins Rugby Football Club. And now you've heard a little bit. You've either heard a little bit about John Berman, or you've heard a lot from John Berman if you're involved in the reunion. Like 2.5 years ago, we were sitting in the bar Taps at the Dakota Hotel after we played what passes for a facsimile of golf in the washed up rugby player world, and John called me aside and he said, Assassin's 50th is in like just over 2 years, man. Like, we gotta do this. We have to do this right. And part of me, because it came out of John's head, went, uh-huh. But the other part of me was, that's kind of interesting. And I am humbled and thrilled to have been on this ride with John. God damn it, he's worked hard. What a great weekend. I'd like to call John up just to say a couple of words. Like, when he's done talking, give him a hug for God's sakes.
Helping me out. Let me just enjoy the moment here. I've prepared a speech for 2 years. I've written, I've erased, I've come up with amazing stuff, I've come up with crap, and this morning I went, screw it. We'll see what happens. And everybody tonight, all the speakers, and I gotta say, I did have a hand in it, but everybody said what I wanted to say in closing. So let me just not have to go into detail and get emotional and that kind of thing, because I can't do that. But after what we've heard tonight from everybody, and I don't want to get into names because everybody it's been marvelous. One thing I will say, John Berman is nothing without Yvonne Berman. I have been involved with a club since '77, which makes it my 40th anniversary. I played hard as I could, and I learned a lot. I got to back this up. Without Scott Gibson and Dwight Evans, my friends from youth, I never would have played rugby. I said, why am I here? And 40 years later, I know why I'm here. And to hear everybody tonight speak the whole history of the 50 years, it started out to be very difficult to get 50 years of history, 50 years of emails, addresses, and sometimes overwhelmment of how are we going to do this? But with everybody here, all my friends, all my rugby people, we got it done. And man, to see all the people that I played with in the 60s and 70s and 80s come here last night, and all the 90 guys that have hung out with me for 2 years in the bars till 3 in the morning, putting up with my rugby stories and saying, we can do this. Wow. Come on! This is awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Don't go away, John. John, don't go away. First of all, standing ovation for God's sakes, people. Now, our good friend John Burke, who travels here from St. Louis often enough for the border people to be suspicious, spent a little bit of time earlier this evening, and in appreciation of all of his hard work, we would like to present John with an autographed ball, 50th anniversary rugby ball, and an autographed 50th jersey. John, God bless you, man. Enjoy the evening, kids. Stick around. Highway 59 is going to be on this stage in a few minutes.
There's no small. It's going to try. You guys, we should have
I'm hip. Free. Straight up. With some top. Over him. Wait. Yeah, Timmy. Go, play. Come in. What? Timmy, over right. You're hurt. Come on, Terry! Oh! Daniel! Bob, get extra. Bob, get extra. Go, cool. Yes. Go! Coming! Wide! Fine. Set. Yes. All in. Now! Block! Block! Come on! Right! With me! Ready? Up! Side! Come on, man! Wait! Look up! You gotta go! There you go! Wait! Take him out! Let him lead! Oh, dummy up! Get up! Turn back! Go run! Get back! To me! Wait! Down!
outside, Denise! Denise, outside!
Keep going, Jake. Keep it on. Nice. Nice, Jake. Right there. Nice. Good one, Jake. That was awesome, JD. There you go. Keep it out. Good.
Down, backward.
Nice, Jack. Go, Jake. Go, low, Kaylee. There you go. Stay out. Stay out. Gary, spread out! Spread out! Bump left!
Now take it to deck. Take it to deck. Black ball. Leave. Black ball. Set up.
Yep, that's over.
White ball. White ball. Check. Down. Black ball. Down. Leave. Hold up. Go ahead. Hey. Last man. 50 ball. Block again. Set tight first and then find out.
Good? Yeah.
Go for it.
Way back in the 60s, Jim Platt had a dream. Said, I'm going to start up a new rugby team. He went into Fort Rouge and found a team that had backs that were speedy and props that were fat. Because we play 50 and we'll play 50 more. We are Assassins Rugby with cricket.
We score.
I think it's really coming along, don't you? Three brothers named Evans came from Churchill High. The oldest was Clint, what a wonderful guy. Bart played pro football, he knew how to win. And in a ruck, Dwight would bite you on the shin. And now we play rugby, ARFC, and we'll play 50 more. We are Assassins Rugby. We drink and we score. The Tom Chucks were boys who were raised on the farm, and to other teams they could both do great harm. Brian was small, but his tackling would scare. And Brent was so fast he ran out of his hair. And now we play rugby, ARFC, and we'll play 50 more. We are Assassins Rugby. We drink and we score. Sometime in the 90s, some Transcona guys joined up with the Rouge Boys to fight for the prize. They brought home the trophy, here's one reason why. Not a man in the province could catch Robbie Fly. And now we play 50 ARFC, and we'll play 50 more. We are Assassins Rugby. We drink and we score. At 25 years, the Blue A's had a thought. It's time for the girls to give rugby a shot. And Chapper, the coach, told them just what to do. He said, go ruck yourselves till you're champions too. And now we play rugby, ARFC, and we'll play 50 more. We are Assassins Rugby. We drink and we score. So now we've reached 50, Assassins are proud. We'll drink to our club and we'll sing it out loud. We're 3 times the champions, and this much we know, that come this October, it's 4 in a row! And now we play rugby, ARFC, and we'll play 50 more. We are Assassins Rugby. We drink and we score. One more time. We play rugby, ARFC, we'll play 50 more. We're Assassins Rugby. We drink and we score. One more time. We play rugby, ARFC, we'll play 50 more. We are Assassins Rugby. We drink and we score. We'll drink and we'll score. Happy birthday, Assassins!
We are very happy to be an assassin. And here this evening. This evening. Oh yeah. Yeah. This gets better and better. It does. It gets better and better. I don't know where this
we're here forever.
We're here forever.
So
we're happy to be here. Might see you in 2035. So yeah. 2017, 27, 37, 42. 2045? Yeah, 2042. Is that yeah, that's the next 75th. Date? That's the 75th.
Assassins! Here's the 50 more! Woo! Thank you.
Oh, rugby's the best decision I've made in my life. Hands down.
I love rugby.
him too. And Dennis Kane was one of them that was instrumental in putting a lot of words together. Bob Ryland, another guy over here, this guy right here, he put a lot of words together, and it was a stunning tribute to 50 years that we put together. It was terrific to be part of it, and
on the background.
who could ask for better than that?
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go! You touch me, now just get me touching. Told this release, just get the rubber for me. Come on, baby, come on. Well, I'm looking for a lover who will come on in, come on in. From the streets, baby, come, let me find this. Hold me in your arms, let's let out wine, cover me. Shut the door and cover me. Well, I'm looking for a lover who will come on in, cover me. Such a rain, the driving slow. I can hear the rocking roll. Turn up the lights, go to town. Time going out, never knows. Whole is right, they're just trying to score. But I've seen enough, I don't wanna see anymore. Cover me, come on in and cover me. I'm looking for a lover who will come on in, cover me. Oh, outside some rain, the driving slow. I can hear the rocking roll. Turn off the lights, close the door. Time going out, never knows. Oh, it's out there just trying to score. But I've seen enough, and I want